Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Tackle Shop Live.
Sunny day, right there you took my breath away. Young and pretty, was it just a dream? The next day you called me up, you told me I'm your little buttercup. You came over and you
What's up, Galen Heathcote? How you doing, buddy?
Well, I know
Charlie Esterly, how you doing, Charlie? Dave Richardson's in the house. Michael Bradley. How you guys doing? What's up, Chris Benninger? Kevin Carpenter's here. How you doing, Kevin? Johnny Kopp. Good to see you, John Kopp. Man, oh man, Mark, how are you, Mark? Hang on. Mark's here. Greg Plank, what's up, Greg Plank? Daniel Gills, Tanner Weimer. Vince Torpey, how you doing, Vince? What's happening? Mark Westner, Dean Resch. Man, I heard you were up at Oneida cracking them. Good to see that, Dean, cracking the Giants. Scott Van Leer, good talking to you today on the phone, Scott. Glad you got your boat back together and you're ready to roll. Hope you get up this way and fish the mighty Chesapeake. Get some time out there. Oh, hey. What was that? Oh! Setty's in the house. What's up, Setty? Ryan Setlock stopping in here.
Important cog of the organization.
Yes, very much.
Not to mention, him and his partner run one heck of a tournament circuit.
Yes, they do. And that starts pretty soon, right? 10 days for the first tournament up on the Conowinga pool for the Conowinga Open Series. That is a very competitive series. Great time, great people, great tournament. If you guys want to jump in a great derby, what's the entry? $110 gets you in the tournament. And they pay right, and it's a lot of fun with a lot of good people. And Brian runs it, so you're going to get to see Brian down there. That's awesome. Matthew Weimer, how you doing? Stephen McGargy, Conway Hayden, what's going up? Don't, Matthew, don't.
Is he talking 5?
Don't, Matthew. We're not going into that. I don't even know where this came from. It's a bunch of BS, if you ask me.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, what are you talking about? You just couldn't let it go, could you?
I didn't have anything to do with it.
Couldn't let it go, could you?
I didn't have anything
You know
to do
what,
with
George? They do say, you got to let the crowd speak. And they spoke. They've spoken, and that's what you're representing, right?
I just had nothing to do with it.
If I'd have known you were going to go down that road, I'd have had my 4s and 6s on. I'll show you your 5, you bastard.
Uh-oh, this is getting serious.
I don't know what the problem is.
So what? So now you're going to tell me this is 5s, huh? You're going to tell me these are 5s on here, huh?
5-aught.
That's what you're going to do.
Those are 50-aughts.
That's your number 5s right there, bro.
Touchy.
Yeah, it's a bunch of crap.
Very touchy.
That is a bunch of crap if I've ever seen it. Don't you guys even go down that road there, Matthew.
Hey, Setlock.
Yeah.
What's the most used size treble hook that you replace on your jerkbaits?
Size 6.
Oh, 6.
Ha ha! Yeah. So now it's getting a little
no wonder
dirty.
You're always losing fish. You know what mine is? Huh?
Tell me.
Size 5.
Number 5. I don't know. I think it's crazy. Yeah. Is that Caitlin did that? Freaking Caitlin. Caitlin, you and me are going to talk. Everybody's ganging up on Mike tonight. Ah, boy. well, we're gonna let that one slide. All right, so, man, we're getting real close to ICAST. Very close to ICAST. We've made all of our trip arrangements. George and I and cameraman Nick are going to be heading to ICAST in a couple of weeks. And we're going to go down there and check out all the new gear and all the new tackle. And I already today, actually 3 days ago, I start seeing some of the releases coming out. They're already pimping them. They're already pushing them. It's not even ICAST, and it's a month before ICAST, and they're already pumping this stuff out. I don't even know why we even go to ICAST. Really. I mean, if they're going to push this stuff out so early, and it's not going to be available for 6-8 months. It's crazy.
Well, the only good thing is, though, Mike, is remember last year we get down there and we're outside and it's brutal hot, right?
Yeah.
But there's this bait that, George starts throwing and we're like, what is this dang thing? And it was the Hellraiser.
Yeah.
And if we wouldn't have seen it,
that's true.
We wouldn't have believed it.
That's true. That's true. There is some good points to ICAST, and there's no doubt that we have to go to ICAST, and we do enjoy ourselves, and it's a lot of work. It's not all fun and games as a lot of guys would think it is. We do have a good time, but it's a lot of work.
I'm going to wear the 5 shirt this year.
Yeah, the number 5.
The interesting thing about ICAST is an industry show that in the advent of social media age has been targeted to the consumer. So you have this product, launch mania with unrealistic timeframes, and then you have, the business side of things. But what's interesting is over the course of the last 6 or 7 years that I've noticed is a lot of your bigger companies that have the power to do so are planning a product or 2 or 3 if they're lucky that they can have prepared to go right around the time the show hits. So, all you savvy bastards out there that are hungry for the next greatest thing, you're up on baits that are been talked about semi-secretly. Jacob Wheeler's kind of like blurring out Rapala plastics.
Yeah.
Even though like it looks like what it is, but it's kind of blurred out. And that's an ICAST launch. And it's being designed to be trickled out like that. It won't be ready for ICAST, but it probably won't be too far behind that. Berkeley did the same thing with the Cull Shed, which is their copy of the Mega Bass swim bait.
Yeah.
They basically took a mag draft, and
that wasn't a ICAST release.
It's
I thought it was a classic release.
No, it hasn't hit them streets yet.
Yeah, I know, but I thought they introduced it to classic.
I mean, they
remember they had them.
They did the same thing that Rapala is doing with Jacob Wheeler and this plastic line.
Yeah,
starting back at the
problem I see with
beginning of the season. They started little.
Yeah, I know, but
social media blurbs and little glimpses, and now it's out. It's called the Cull Shed. Here's what it looks like. Here's the colors. Here's the sizes, and boom, 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 boom. The end tomorrow or Monday they'll be here. So it's kind of like they're the companies that can do so are putting a couple products out on that timeline. And the cool thing is they're awesome products, and their pro staff has been winning tournaments on them. So,
yeah,
but then all the rest of it is that's what I'm 6 months out.
That's what I'm saying. They're already talking about stuff that's not even going to be available for 6, 7 months, 8 months. Some of the stuff
there's a few items
won't even come out until next year.
There's a few items that are interesting. It's interesting how over the last 6 or 7 years, there's there's been a couple items that a couple companies are able to time out to hit when the media fury is at its peak. That's my point.
I know. What's up, Jesse McNutt? How you doing? Amy Lynn Brown, what's going on? How you doing? St. Cress is in the house. Jerry Otto's here. Sam and Sam, what's going on? Yeah. 9 pounds Smalley caught on Cayuga today. Anybody hear that? Brian, did you hear about 9 pounds Smalley? No. I don't know, Sam. We're going to have to get some evidence on that. If you can come up with some evidence, email it to Caitlin. That would be like pretty impressive. What was that big one they caught last year? 8.4, 8.2, 8.4, something like that in the spring. But anyway, get back to ICAST. We're getting ready for it. We're getting our game plan together. We're going to have a bunch of social media stuff that we're going to do down there. A bunch of interviews with guys. We're going to do Tackle Shop Live again on the show floor. So we're going to do that for that Thursday, which I think is the 14th, or 13th, maybe. Whatever that Thursday is, that week, we're gonna do Tackle Shop Live on the show floor until they kick us out. So that'll be fun. We'll try to line some people up to talk to, for that event also. So stay tuned for some great ICAST stuff coming up. We'll keep you abreast of what's going on there. Keep your eyes peeled for some of the stuff that's being released now on social media. That's pretty exciting stuff. George and they released. Can I talk about that reel?
Why not?
They put it out there, right?
Oh, it's out there, baby.
Yeah. So St. Croix is releasing a bait casting reel and a spinning reel. And when George and I went down to Alabama, they gave us 2 of them. So we were fishing them down there in Alabama. We weren't allowed to talk about it, but we caught 400 fish on them and put them through the ringer. And, had a chance to fish them around. Very nice reel. It's going to be a pretty cool reel to look at and check out and be well worthy of putting it in the shop here. So look for that to come sometime in the future. Probably not near future. Who knows when it's going to come. Like I said, with this stuff, they get everybody fired up, and then it's like a total letdown. It's like going to a birthday party, and there's no cake. Cake never shows up. So,
or the dog eats it.
Freddie Mackey, how you doing, bud? Heard you just got back from Lake Oneida. I wonder how you did. So that's it for me. I don't have anything else. You guys keep an eye out on our social media. We're going to do some specials over the next several weeks, and we're going to try to do something in the shop here next Saturday, possibly. So keep your ears peeled for that.
Yeah, also. Not only that, with social media tonight, let's get this thing fired up. How about let's like, share, comment. If you like, share, and comment tonight, you are entered into a giveaway for a couple baits.
Oh,
we got some lined up for you.
Nice
little package.
Yeah.
Like, share, and comment to enter.
Yep. Like, share, and comment. Get all your guys in on the show tonight. We got a good one for you. We're going to be talking about the bluegill spawn, how to fish it, what to do, what baits to throw, what to look for, and we're going to get into all that stuff. But right now, we're going to get into what we like to talk about, and that's a little tackle talk. Yeah. We're a tackle shop, so we talk tackle, that's for sure. Jerry Otto, how you doing? Renee, what's going on, Renee? Good to see you. I saw Mark's here too, so you guys are probably watching in separate rooms or something. I don't know. Amy Lynn Brown, thank you for shopping at SFT. We love it when you guys come in. You're heading to Canada, I think, right?
Probably a good guess. I think 75 to 80% of the people that live in Pennsylvania are going to Canada this weekend.
Yeah. That's for sure.
Bass season opens.
Yeah. Well, she was in tonight, and she's all jacked up. She's like, I want to go out and catch giants. So she was buying all the baits. I didn't have to say anything. She went right back and got Senko's, which I mean, that's like the greatest bait ever in Canada. And she's got her game plan. She's going to go up there and catch a big old 5.5, 6 pounder. So that's going to be nice to see. So George, what? Oh, Alaska. You're going to Alaska.
I bet you she doesn't catch a 5-pound bass in Alaska.
You are not catching a 5-pound bass in Alaska. We are not talking about the same Amy that I know. No, I know who you are. Okay, George, what do we got for tackle talk?
Oh, man. You know what? I was poking around in the hook aisle today.
I love hooks.
Yeah.
I mean, if you guys know George and I, and you've been in our shop, you know that we love hooks. We have all kinds of hooks in here.
Well, I had a gentleman in here earlier today who was looking for a stout flipping hook. He catching big fish. He's flipping heavy cover. And I was showing him some flipping hooks, and they're all pretty stout. But the one of the newer flipping hooks that I saw is called an Owner HD jungle flipping hook.
That's a beauty right there.
Well, several years ago, they brought out the jungle flipping hook.
I like that hook.
Okay. And this hook became a big time hook with the flippers.
Yeah, I like that hook.
You know, and for those of you who are not aware of the whole straight shank hook thing, I'm gonna attempt to show you two at the same time. So we have the regular jungle and the jungle HD. But for those of you who aren't like totally dialed into the whole straight shanked flipping hook, worm hook thing, it's pretty hard to beat the hook ratio and land ratio on a straight shank hook. I mean, don't get me wrong. You know, EWGs are fantastic, you know, for flipping the Superline EWG and all the various versions of the EWG from all the great companies. There's a bunch of them. Hayabusa, VMC, Gamakatsu, Mustad, Owner, BKK. Man, there's a ton of them. Trocar.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. I mean, our hook aisle is literally ridiculous. But, you know, if you're a tournament fisherman or if you're a guy that's fishing for, you know, big fish,
Trophy fishing,
heavy cover,
yep,
and you're only getting a few of those bites and you don't want to farm any of them out, that straight shanked hook is hard to beat. Now, the downside of the straight shanked hook is it's a little more, you know, your baits tend to want to slide on it. So, you know, there's been some great
advances with hook keepers.
Keeping them.
With keepers,
right.
Yeah.
You know, back when Reaction Innovations brought out the BMF, which was kind of like the forerunner of the straight shanked cult hook flipping thing, the keeper was 2 slices on the shank. And it didn't keep very well. So we would cut a little piece of rubber tubing and push it up behind our bait to kind of hold it in place. Worked great, but it was high maintenance. So different manufacturers started putting different keepers on. And Owner on their Jungle series was one of the first to do that. And that is a loop of heavy fluorocarbon.
Move your finger. It was better without it. There you go.
Tied to the hook. That's all thread. And what's nice about that is, you know, it's a little forgiving. It's got a little movement to it. So it's a little forgiving. So you're not tearing up so many baits. You know, when you have the the keepers like this jungle that are a welded, soldered, I should say, heat shrink covered metal keeper. And you'll see that on a lot of hooks. They really tear the bait up, but who cares? You caught a big fish, it tears up your bait. Who cares? So it's not really all about that. They're just a little more high maintenance, but when the money's on the line, so the big difference there, obviously, from the jungle flipping hook to the HD, this is a 5X wire. Okay. It's
Slick coated.
Zoe wire. So their Primo wire is called Zoe wire, and it's got the gray, silky gray coating, the real slick coating that the regular jungle hook has. So regular jungle hook, Primo. Talked about this last week because they were out of stock for a year.
Yeah. So the big heavy wire hook, when you're flipping in the real heavy cover and you got 50, 65 pound braid on there, 25-pound test fluorocarbon, and you can really swing on it hard with a 7.5 or an 8 foot flipping rod, to keep the hook from opening up, because that's what happens when you pull really hard on it. The point actually can open up on a light wire hook and spring open, the fish comes off and it snaps shut again, and you don't even know what happened. But with this heavier wire hook, they came out with these hooks so that doesn't happen anymore. There's no possible way for these hooks to spring open under extreme pressure when you're pulling that fish out of the mat or the heavy cover. And that's the idea behind the jungle heavy duty. The other one is a very strong hook also.
Yeah, I mean, the jungle flipping hook it's
a super strong hook.
I mean, it's not flexing. It's also Zoe wire. It's also the gray, silky gray coating.
Yeah.
You're just the jungle flipping HD is heavier. And it has a little different bend. It has the
fishing in the hyacinths.
Has kind of that V bend.
Yeah. Fishing in the hyacinths, that big heavy stuff down in Florida, that real bad, big lily pad fields or stuff like that where you have big
fish, big cover,
big
rod, big line.
Yeah, that's where that hook really
not
shines.
Everybody's part of the world is
like that.
Right. Like personally speaking, 99% of the fishing I do, a regular jungle flipping hook.
Right. That's gonna be sufficient.
Great.
Yeah.
But if you're a big Florida mat guy or a Texas, heavy cover Texas, super mat Gunnersville guy, catching big fish, check it out. Jungle flipping HD hook. Pretty cool hook. And I was come across it today when I was in the hook aisle. It's kind of new. It came out this year. They just haven't shipped very many of them. They have another really cool wide gap hook, but we're not going to talk about that until they decide to ship some more.
What else you got?
I have another owner hook called the Cover Shot, which is the exact opposite end of the spectrum.
Yep. Lighter line, smaller baits.
Nico wacky hook with the keeper, the folded over fluorocarbon keeper. That is very nice, particularly on a, picture Texas rig on a 6-inch, magic worm, which is kind of a thin worm. You don't want to tear it out when you set the hook, or have it tear out when it's getting pulled down by the cover. Or picture Nico rigging with a little number 10 here, Nico rigging a bait. Or one of the coolest things that's been going on the last couple of years in drop shotting, open water, is threading a bait on the hook. So grab a worm here. And this is done a lot with minnow style baits. This is done a lot with, if you were to drop shot like a 3-inch spark shad, or if you were to drop shot like a baby Z2, a lot of times in the open water, you're going to actually thread the bait onto the hook. So, it's exactly what it says. And what I like to do when I do that is I like to kind of measure them up and kind of see where that hook wants to come out at and sort of eyeball that. And then just thread it on, and I'll show you what it looks like. Some of that Elastec is a little tricky.
Missed it.
It's threaded on. You get a lot more life out of your bait, and that hook's farther back in that bait. So that is the cover shot, also from Owner. And again, that's becoming a hot little finesse hook. That's been a in-demand finesse hook for us.
Yeah.
They are $5.79 a pack, and you're getting about 5 hooks in every pack. Some of the bigger ones might be a 4 count. I didn't check every single size, but pretty typical price for premium hook.
Yeah. Nice hook.
Yeah, great hook.
Very nice hook.
Great hook.
Core tackle? No, I'm not unfamiliar with that, Sam. Haven't played with that yet.
Hey, George, you brought up threading, and I did see that. I seen like Seth Fighter likes to do that. A lot of these guys. Have you guys tried that much? I know I haven't. Played with threading the drop shot bait on.
I think we did a little bit of that with shad, more shad style, like a Super Fluke Junior. We did it with that. A lot with that, but yeah, I haven't really got a lot into it, but that's one thing that I did do it with, is thread that on there.
I haven't done much of it all. I don't tend to drop shot that baby Z2 a whole lot, which I like. One of the nice things about threading a bait on a bulky bait like that is you can thread the hook instead of going through the middle of the bait. You can thread the hook in the top third thickness, so you maximize your hook gap. And in that Elastec bait, it's not going to tear out. You can probably fish the same worm all week.
Little up, Tim Maynard?
Thread it on. You know what I mean?
Ed Radnowski, how you guys doing?
And then that 3X is real buoyant, so that little bit bigger hook, and they'll have no problem floating that. But yeah, that's becoming a big deal.
That's a deadly rig.
And as we start all going north for smallmouth now,
drop shot that baby Z2 and that Zoom Super Fluke Junior. Son, get the net.
I remember way back in the day before we were smart enough to thread.
Doesn't work in Conalingo, Brian. Doesn't. Not at all. Don't throw it down there. Don't throw it down there.
I remember way back in the day before we were smart enough to thread the baits on, drop shot and real bulky baits. There was a bait way back in the day called a Poor Boy's Goby, which was a killer drop shot bait on Lake Erie for me. And I would use a 1.0 EWG hook and nose hook it. Yeah, that was before the fish were mega pressured. Now you probably have to drop down a little smaller or thread it on. But we never even thought about that. We weren't that smart. So I really like that whole concept of threading those bulkier minnow-style baits on.
Yeah.
And if you go up in size, like if you go up to the Z2 or the other minnow-style baits that are, bigger, then that's really going to help you. Just, don't go through the middle of the bait, come up about a third so that your hook is not deep. and you'll have a lot of exposed gap. And these cover shot hooks are going to be great for that.
Yeah.
Because they're going to hold on real good.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So another thing I found down there from Owner is we were talking about trebles last week and hook sizes for jerkbaits. And not every treble hook company, is making like the 5s or the different weights. But Owner, I was looking at our Owner treble hook selection, and man, they're killing it. So their standard treble is what's called a ST36, and that's going to be your standard wire. There's of course is a black nickel, strong, somewhere close to a round bend hook. It's not perfectly round bend, but it's got a nice gap. But heavier hooks are needed on some baits for the size of the fish you're catching or for other reasons, like trying to get a bait to suspend better or what have you. And so Owner, who makes a beautiful treble hook, has done the ST41. And what's cool about the ST41 is we carry it from a 6 to a 2/0. So
I see you got the favorite one in your hand there.
I got a 4, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Their favorite one.
My favorite's a 5.
Apparently not. Why didn't you get the 5 from them?
They don't have a 5 in this size hook. They do a 5 in the ST36.
Oh.
So this hook, it's interesting because on the smaller sizes, you can beef up your crankbait hook. And on your big size hooks, you can match up with your bigger glide baits and your bigger swim baits that are all the rage now. So you can upgrade your hooks with that either ST36 or ST41. We're highlighting the 41 tonight. The size 6 through size 1 are $6.99 a pack. There's 4 hooks. No, wait a minute. There's quite a few hooks in there. 8. That's a nice quantity. There's 8 hooks in there. The 10 and 20 are $8.99, and the quantity is going to drop back a little bit. The 10 and 20, not going to lie to you, they're out of stock more than they're in stock. If you're looking for them, when you see them on our website, buy a 1-year supply, because we only have them in like once a year. Those real big ones. So it's a good way to upgrade, and it's another great hook option. And while I was in the treble hook section from Owner, it's getting
everybody needs those things.
Yeah, it's getting that time of the year where we're
looking at our poppers,
throwing our top waters with our feathers,
digging through our boxes and noticing that all the freaking tails are chewed off.
If you had a good year last year, it's time to upgrade. Or if you have a good day on the water, you may need to upgrade.
Yeah, they chew all the freaking feathers off them.
But this is called the Tournament Trailer. It's from Owner, Feather, on an ST36. So this is a primo, beautifully tied feather and a little mylar. Beautiful.
Yep.
2 in a pack for $4.99.
I got to tell you, Nick.
Tournament Trailer.
The feather treble, not only the poppers, very famous on the poppers and all that kind of stuff, but the importance of it on a topwater lure. We've been messing with it on the back of walking baits, putting it on a Czar Spook, putting it on a Giant Dog X, for instance, putting it on the back of a crankbait, as a trailer hook on the back of a crankbait and swimming it through the water. So that treble hook, although it's very important for your topwaters, you could mess around and do some other things with it and add a little bit of extra to it. And I know that on topwater baits, there's times where that thing makes a huge difference, and you got to have it on there. And it's important to have a good one on there. something that really stands out nice and has good body to it, and it doesn't just fold up, and it looks good in the water.
So for two guys here that I know how you are with your feathers on your hooks and all that, what is the premier day where it really matters that you've seen it out there?
I virtually will never fish a topwater without a feather on the back of it. I mean, 99.5% of the time, my topwater has a feather.
It just adds so much to the topwater that it's kind of hard not to throw it. But if you look in your boxes, I guarantee you go home and look in your boxes now, you're going to have discolored feathers that are all kind of discolored from the mud of the water or just bouncing around in your box and being in there for so long. They're all
rust,
dinged up from rust and all the different things. You got to have pristine feathers on the back of that bait for that thing to really ultimately perform, because that's how important that feather is. So, you guys, when you're sitting around in your boat, open up your topwater box and check it out. I'm telling you, you're going to be like, ooh, ugh. Should have got the good detergent out for this, because this is bad. This has got the yellow stains on it, So keep yourself a nice. We always have a box of those down in under the seat of the jet boat, and there's a box of treble hooks and George's skeeter. And when we see something ugly, man, just get our Texas tackle pliers out, zip, zip, zip off, zip, zip, zip on. You're ready to go. It's going to make a big difference in your fishing. What else you got, George?
I have the Respect Series color for this month.
Man, look at this thing. This thing's crazy.
From Megabass.
This is nuts.
And they brought it out in quite a few baits. I have Sakura Viper.
Look at that thing.
I have it in the Giant Dog X. And I have it in the X Nanahan. I have it in the Griffin BFS crankbait. And I have it in the Pop X. I have it in the Pop Max to go along with the Pop X.
Look at that.
And of course, Vision 110 and Vision 110 Junior.
So there's still some of those left. They're not on the website, so you'll have to call into the shop here to purchase those. You can do that starting tomorrow. You can call in, get your shot at this bait. It's a very limited edition bait, very limited run. And we have a few left, don't we, George, of everything?
Yeah. We're getting pretty low on a few things, but
yeah.
We have more of some and less of others.
Yeah. Jesse McNutt, you're exactly right. That is sick. That's a bad looking bait, man. I just that thing's gonna make waves at the right moment for sure.
Well, it's funny, when we were doing Pre-Tackle Shop Live, we showed that color and some guys were like, pink. Well, let's think about it. Morning Dawn.
Yeah.
How many pink baits are out there? It's
Bubble Gun Super Fluke, which we love, so.
And there you go.
That's pink.
Yep.
It's pink.
With an orange belly.
Yeah.
I like it.
I got my butt whooped one time on a guy at Candlewood Lake on a bubble gum Senko.
Oh.
It was one of them. You get to the boat in the morning, you're looking at your co-angler, you're like, I don't need to worry about that guy.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
I can tell you what, he didn't need to worry about me.
Yeah, he schooled you on that one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that runs in Jersey. I fished a divisional tournament down there, and the last day I drew this guy, and the fishing was extremely tough. And I had a shot at making a team, the divisional team. I just needed to come in with really only 3 fish is really all I needed. And I'm fishing. I got 2 in the box. And this guy, for some reason, goes down in this box and pulls out a red Senko, bright red Senko, and proceeds to put 4 fish in the boat off of this grass bed that I was fishing. And I'm like, man, I cannot believe, and I couldn't get bit. And that red, I mean, red. with I think silver flake in it. It was ugly.
I'm guessing you didn't have any of them in your box.
I did not have a one. All I needed was like one more fish, and I would have made the divisional team.
Shoulda, woulda.
Yeah, shoulda, woulda. Well, I mean, who would have thought red, bubble gum, you know? And when we were idling to the weigh-in, I asked him, I said, "What the hell made you throw that?" He said, "I don't know. I didn't catch nothing on anything else all week. I just saw it in my box." And I'm like, "You son of a gun!"
Out of pure desperation.
Desperation.
I
Sometimes
like that.
sometimes that's the best way. You know, you go. He said it just looked different, so I threw it. You know, and I'm like, "Man, you did."
I like that. Yeah, I like that.
You got any other baits you want to talk about, George? Or?
Well, I got a restock of the Shimano Swagey Strong spinnerbait, and I want to run that down again because this bad boy is becoming the hot little spinnerbait on campus.
Well, we've gotten an opportunity to fish it for a while and put it through the tests and really kind of understand what it's all about now.
Oh, it's nice. Yeah, Swagey Strong. So, you know, the wire's tapered from the head to the blade. So you get a ton of vibration, very durable. And that's true. That's not.
No, it is very durable.
Premium components, premium blades, heavy. You can feel the weight of the blade. And gold plated. Now, if you don't think there's a difference between gold plated blades and brass blades, your spinnerbait game is not on point. And that's a fact. Hand-tied skirts with wire, very durable. Nice keeper for you guys that like to fish a trailer. Great hook. Got a resupply on those. They kind of...
You said about the vibration. The vibration is ridiculous on this thing.
It pulls hard through the water.
It pulls really hard through the water. You got a great vibration and thump out of that bait.
I'm a spinnerbait junkie. That's one of the best spinnerbaits that I have thrown. And I've thrown, I mean,
it really runs.
Damn good spinnerbaits.
It really runs
I mean,
well.
we sell some of the best spinnerbait companies that there are, period. And they are all top of their game. But this thing is bad to the bone. So resupplied on those. And we also got a big time resupply from Normark, which is Rapala, Suffix, VMC, Storm, etc., etc. We got a huge reshipment for them. So that is this week's
Tackle Talk.
Tackle Talk.
All right. There you go. Mike Barr is in the house. Joe Nubbs, how you guys doing? Sean Bauman, how you doing? Snakeheads will smash that color. I believe it. I think you're right, buddy. I think it'll eat it.
I'll give you a chance to test the Swagey Strong part.
Yeah, it will. Absolutely.
Because snakeheads are very disrespectful to your baits.
Yeah. Yeah. Tammy Geeman's here. How you doing, Tammy? Cayuga Tammy. They were up there beating up on your fish bad this past week. Philip, good. How are you doing? 6 or 4. I'm Philip. I'm 4. I'm 4, Philip. Remember 4. 4 is what it's all about. The number 5, I have no idea what they're talking about there.
Mike, did you see any snakeheads over the weekend?
No. I fished the Ike Foundation tournament on Sunday down on the flats, and we fished all day long and never saw a snakehead or caught a snakehead. They're in the spawning mode right now, so they're kind of up shallow and, you know, heavy grass, getting into that heavy grass stuff. And I didn't see a one, honestly.
I caught a big one when you and I were practicing the week before.
Oh, that's right. You did. Yep.
On a chatter bait.
Yeah. The week before you caught one.
Not a dragon now.
Down there. No, it was a nice one though. It was a 5-pounder.
5-6 pounder, but no, not dragon material.
David Stottlemyre, how you doing? Frank Garvey, North Branch. Okay. All right. So I'm glad everybody's stopping in and checking out Tackle Shop Live. We appreciate you guys very much for watching every week. Very important to us. We appreciate it. We're hoping you're liking the shows. One thing I want to put out there is if you guys have any topics that you want, or you want us to talk, or bring somebody on, or talk about something that we haven't talked about yet, send us an email, drop us a note on Facebook, message us however you want to do it, and we will look into it, and we'll put it on our list and throw it in there and try to get some information out for you guys. These shows are getting we come up with these topics as they're pertinent, but if there's something that we're not covering and you want to hear it, we want to know, so we can do our best to cover it the way we cover things, and help out wherever we can. So definitely let us know about that. All right. So I guess what we'll do now is we'll go into our topic of the night, and tonight we are going to be talking about the bluegill spawn. And I was reading an article, and Mark Menendez was doing this article, and I think it was about, were they at High Rock Lake?
I don't recall the article.
Just recently fishing. Where were they at? They were
down at Sabine, and then before that they were at the Santee Cooper.
Yeah.
And there was a big time bluegill bed spawn there.
Exactly. So in one of those tournaments, and I'm not exactly sure which one it was. It might have even been Lay Lake. I don't know. But anyway, he was talking about the how important the bluegill spawn is, and how to always be looking for it. And for him, it played a big role in his tournament. And the way he found out about it was he was fishing hard, and he was like, man, I got to take a break. I'm just going to sit down here and eat my lunch. And he was eating his lunch and kind of thinking about the day and getting ready to, get jazzed up for the next part of his day. And he drifted into a cove. And he's sitting there eating a sandwich. He looks over to the side of the boat, and here's this bluegill on a bed. And, just off the side of the boat. And as he's drifting, he's real quiet, just drifting in there. Drift a little bit more, and there's a bass standing there looking at the bed. And then he drifted a little bit more and saw another bass looking the other direction, and then there was a bed over there. So you had these two bass that were looking at these bluegill beds, waiting for
big time
the bluegill to make a mistake. And that's what this is all about, is the bass just sat there. They just set off of the beds. They're not. It's not a shad bite. It's not like an explosion of action. It's just they're just waiting for that bluegill to make that mistake. And he was saying how all of a sudden he said, "Oh, this is what's happening." So then he started to gear himself up for that. Now he likes to throw topwater, in that situation, and so that's one of his favorite baits. He also said he uses other baits, but that was his bait that he really liked.
Well, and it's kind of like a shad spawn, in that the thing about a shad spawn that makes it so killer for bass is there's thousands of them.
Yeah.
And you and I ran into twice this year now. We've run into, I guess you could call it shad spawn. The only problem was they weren't shad.
Yeah, I don't know.
They were doing what shad do, but they were some kind of minnow. But, man, the bass are there. And the reason is it's a lot of them. Well, in a bluegill, the thing you want to understand about the bluegill spawn is bluegills spawn in colonies. Like when the bass, and here's a quick little tip on how to find areas. If you know where bass spawn, if you have seen bass spawning in your lake, in your waters, bass will spawn kind of in an area, but with a little distance between their beds. When they're done spawning, the bluegill move in and take those beds over, and they spawn in those beds because the bluegill like to spawn a little later water temperature wise, right, Mike?
The funny thing about bluegill spawn is it lasts a long time. It starts in June. is when well, it starts even before June, but they'll spawn in a little cooler water. I think I have it written down here. They'll start spawning at 65-degree water temperature.
Not hot and heavy.
Yeah, not real hot and heavy. So it's a real slow start, but they'll spawn all the way through 80 degrees, and it lasts a long time. So you might have, and this is all over the country. So, and that's why
It's an average.
It's why they say bluegill spawn all summer long, because they'll spawn down south, and you can follow that. They'll spawn in Florida 4 or 5 times. They'll spawn, at different spots 4 or 5 times. But the peak for us and the Northeast here is June and July, is when the bluegill spawn kind of peaks. And then after July, it starts to fall off. But you'll see fish spawning in August. Bluegill spawning in August, but then that's just the very few. So you got a few early in the 65, and then it peaks out in June and July, and then it starts dropping off in July and August. You'll see a few around. So there is a lot of bluegill spawning going on throughout the year,
and it's draws a lot of attention because of the, they fill in the dots, man. They're like, it looks like craters just all intertwined, like you're looking into a honeycomb. When Mike and I were down in Alabama fishing earlier this year, the bass were done spawning, and the bluegill they were spawning for a little bit, and they were spawning big time. And on 360, you could see these beds, and it looked like the most beautiful screenshot ever. It was just the corner of the lake, like in a corner, out off the bank a little bit, in 6 foot of water, 5-6 foot of water, 4 or 5 foot of water, was just dozens and dozens of bluegill beds that started out as bass beds.
Yeah.
And now the bluegills moved in, and all around those bluegill beds, when we launched the boat in the morning, and a couple times during the day, and when we ended the day, you could fish the perimeters around those beds and get smashed. There was so many bass
just sitting there.
were just sitting there and just hanging in that vicinity, just waiting for something to spook the bluegill and have some of them rush, and then boom. Or, the bass stalk in, and then boom. And like I say, we would start our mornings there. We might touch it during the day, and then the boat ramp was nearby, so we would come by, plan a little time for the end of the day.
Yeah.
And we caught them on quite a few of the baits that we're going to talk about tonight that are great for that scenario. Another time, Mike and I found, a giant complex of beds in like 2 to 3 foot of water on the upper Chesapeake Bay, on the edge of and going into a pad field. And we saw that on the 360.
Yeah.
And
they stick out good on the 360.
That particular time, no good.
No, we didn't catch anything.
No good.
I think they were empty.
And I just wanted to say, because George, you brought up a great point with the 360. How many people have the technology? They see it and they don't realize what they've seen.
Yeah.
So what would you say it looks like? Just tires like almost lined up.
It looks like, if you don't know what it is,
it does. It looks like tires.
Take your 360 back.
Looks like somebody threw a bunch of tires in the water.
It just looks like dimples in the bottom.
Yeah.
Like, it would be like if you magnified the surface of a golf ball.
That's a good point.
It's just crater after crater after crater. Because again, bluegill are colony spawners. They're basically just having a giant bluegill love in.
The other thing too, George, is they don't all spawn in 6 foot of water. Some of them spawn right on the bank. Right.
Well, those ones that we saw on the bay last year, they were in like 2 foot of water.
Yeah, and a lot of times you can, and especially on a lake impoundment where, you got those. And I'll tell you another thing you're looking for is you're looking for a nice gravel bottom. They won't They don't spawn in rocks and
or sand.
chunk rocks. They like a nice sandy gravel bottom so that they can, make their beds, because they like a big, deep bed, and that's what they make. But they, so if you don't have the electronics, don't worry about it. You can just peruse the bank, and you can find these little, bedding areas, and you can find your own areas that way. The 360 just lets you find the different types of them, the ones that are in deeper water and that kind of thing. And let me tell you something. Once you find them, put a GPS mark on them, because they'll be back there again at the same spot next year. They always go to the same areas on your lake, and they always spawn in the same areas. So that's another thing that I read about, when we were researching this, was those beds will always be back there unless there's some kind of crazy, flood that puts bad stuff in that area, or too much sediment, or then they'll move. But you can pretty much bank on those bluegill beds to be there in the same areas every year in, year out. So you definitely want to do that.
I see that, on the areas I know bass to spawn. Like, there's a few areas where you just, year in and year out, they're big time spawning areas, and they're not necessarily huge areas.
No,
but they got the right kind of bottom.
Yeah,
they got the right kind of cover nearby, because bass will like to build their bed maybe with a stick right there, or maybe with a dock leg right there. Well, those bluegills are going to spawn there, but they're going to take that one bass bed that was on that, by that tree stump, and they're going to turn that into 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 beds, all just interlocked. So remember what we started off saying, it's kind of like a needle in a haystack when you're out there looking, because you got this lake and you're looking for some place where fish this big are spawning. Well, a good place to start is on areas that bass bed, because when the bass leave, the gills move in.
So the other thing is this, this is not like the shad spawn where it's explosive every morning. It's explosive fishing. This is you're fishing isolated fish that are isolated around these bluegill beds. So you got to work. Sometimes you got to work at them. Sometimes they're going to be aggressive and they're going to hit the top water very easily. Sometimes, throwing that drop shot in there and pulling it around those beds and casting into the beds and pulling them out of those beds. And those fish realize that maybe that was an easy meal. But to be very successful at bluegill spawn, you have to have multiple areas. You can't rely on one bedding area to go in and catch a 5-fish limit, because you may only go in and catch one off of that bluegill area, or you might get lucky and catch two. So you got to have multiple spots to run this pattern. Now, if you don't know the lake well, like a lot of us don't, when we go to these new lakes, we don't really know where they spawn, but you do find one, you stumble across one, kind of look at the area, and then start running around and try to match that area up and check them for beds. And you can come up with possibly 2 or 3 bedding areas that will give you that limit of fish that, that you can catch 5 off of. You're not going to catch them off of one spot. You maybe if you get lucky or stay there all day, you might catch the 5 off of there. But all these guys that I read about and listened to about this topic, they all have multiple spots on a bluegill spawn.
You ever have any
Very
interaction with a bluegill spawn, Nick?
Well, just today, I was with Greg today, and we were actually talking about it because we knew the topic today. And I'm looking over, and I was just going to bring it up. Like, if you don't have the technology or you don't know what you're looking for, go to a lake that has clear water.
Yeah.
Because that's the perfect thing. And that's what we had today. And you could literally see the beds. You could literally see the little, bluegill swimming around. And what was cool was it was near like a little grass area.
Yeah.
And what Greg was saying is like, Nick, check it out. He's like, you can literally see where the bass, they weren't there, but you could see where the bass would like ambush.
Yeah.
Like set up their little pods, set them up.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be my thing. Like, if you don't know what you're looking for, go to a clear lake and go, okay, Because if you do try to go down to, like, let's say the Upper Bay,
Yeah.
and you don't know what you're looking for,
Yeah.
it could be tough.
It's tough. Yeah.
The first time I really had tremendous success with it was on the Potomac River, but I didn't know it was. I didn't realize it was bluegill spawn. There was bluegill everywhere, but I hadn't encountered that anywhere. And I got over on the Virginia side of the river, and I got farther up the river, and it's kind of like moving a little back in time when you go way up a river.
Yeah.
When you're right at that spawn, end of spawn, post spawn phase, which is the kind of the trigger for the bluegill spawn. Well, I must have just ran into this area and it had everything we're talking about. It was protected.
Yep.
It had the proper bottom, because a lot of your rivers like that have real scummy, silty bottoms.
Yeah.
This had sandy, grainy bottom. It had grass to filter the water clean. And I saw a comment on here from Eric Hill flipping the weed beds close to the beds, to the bluegill beds.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's how I found them. I was flipping clump grass on what I would call the inside edge with a sweet beaver, which I have, my little list of my little bluegill spawn baits that have been my kind of go-tos. You can't beat. Now, I mean, there's 89 copies of it now. So if you're a D-bomb guy or a whatever guy, that bait, you know what I'm talking about. But that sweet beaver style bait, if you look at that sideways and you look at a little bluegill, that profile is uncanny. And that's what was happening. And then lo and behold, I got in there because I got snagged or something, or I was bogged down in the grass or something, and I'm like, hell. And I remember thinking, you could bring a kid here and have a hell of a good time catching bluegill, because there was a shit ton of them in there. And, from that day on, it clicked.
Yeah. Yeah. Down in Florida, they spawn in the pads. They go into pads and they spawn all in these pad areas. So the outside edge of the pads is where the bass, that first couple feet is where they're going to sit and wait for something to screw up in those pads for them to come out. I watch a guy in the morning when I'm taking care of my business. There's this guy that's always on there down there in Florida, bluegill spec fishing. And I listen to him because they spec fish every single day, and he's been doing it for 50 years. He knows where every bluegill bed is in the entire lake of Kissimmee. And he goes out there every day and they spec fish. And he was saying about, you can watch the lily pads and you can see the bass knocking through these lily pads, and you'll see one wrestle real hard. That's a bass eating a bluegill that made a bad
career move.
The career move. He eased out. I guess what he was saying was they don't really come in and attack the beds. They wait till somebody they mess up, and then they come out for whatever reason to do
They're
whatever.
pretty close to the beds.
Mark Menendez said they were 2 foot away, sitting there watching these beds. And he said they were sitting. One was watching this bed, and one was watching that bed. And he said it was just really neat to see what was going on. 2 foot away from each bed, just sitting there waiting for them to make a mistake. They wouldn't go in and eat them off the bed. Why? I don't know. I don't know what the deal was with that, but he said they just wait for them to mess up. They won't go in there and eat them. They have to get them on the outside. So he said that's why you present baits past the bed on the outside edge, and you fish the outside edge of the bed, and you throw past it on the outside edge, and you fish on the outside, and you fish ambush points and anything in between. But somebody asked about if it's just bluegills. No, bluegills, when we say bluegills, it's all sunfish. It's red ears, it's pumpkin seeds, it's green heads, or whatever they call all these different types of sunfish, because there's 8 million different ones.
Well, there's a bunch of them. They're down south, they call them
brim, specks.
Yeah.
All this kind of
sunfish, bluegills.
Yeah. Sunfish.
Whatever you want to call them.
Yeah. You can call them, whatever. And I think probably maybe within the species, they spawn at different times, maybe the bluegills do one thing, and then the pumpkin seeds do it another time.
Well,
I don't know. I don't know the science of that.
And if you look at them swimming around in there, there's different sizes. There's some of them are little, some of them are bigger. Those bass, they'll eat, depending on the size of the bass, they'll eat any size. But the smaller ones, I noticed more than once I've seen them chasing on them, blowing up on them, and the little guy get away. Yeah. It's always a little one.
Yeah.
Right. So
the other thing that is pretty critical for lake fishing is shade. The bass will use the shade as ambush. If it's a lake that doesn't have vegetation or whatever, they'll use the shade as a setup for the ambush.
The shade line is
so shade lines, when the shade gets right on those beds, the fish will get a lot more active, and you can catch them better with the shade, around those beds. So that's another thing that was said over and over in the stuff that I was reading.
And George brought up a great point, because think about this: these bass are eating a bluegill. So if there's a bass in that area, it should be a decent sized bass.
Oh, they're nice. They're nice fish. I mean, 3 pounds, pushing 3, good quality fish. Like I said, when I first stumbled upon it, those fish that I was catching in that grass on the Potomac, they were tournament winning fish. And then once I figured out and put it together, then, I pretty much I have to look into this a little further. And things like the grass close to the beds, very important. The shade line, very important. The topwater bait can be absolutely deadly all day long. Now, the funny thing is on topwater is, in the southeast and the southwest and the south, particularly south and southeast, they are big on a double prop style bait, a little double prop style bait. And I don't throw that.
Yeah.
That's not my gig. My gig is a popper and a walking bait. That has been my success on.
Yeah, that's one of them, Nick.
That's been my success on, for me, fishing bluegill beds, hands down, a popper and a walking bait. I'm just talking about confidence, whatever. I promise you, if that's what you throw, if you throw those 2 baits in those circumstances, and I always do better next to the grass with the popper, because I can throw the popper right next to the grass, pop it, and it stays there. It doesn't want to walk away. So one of the things that I'll do to kind of lengthen my success with the blue, like on a later pass in the day, when the sun's up and there's a shade pocket, a shade line, and it's close to those grass edges, that's when I'll get the popper out on, say, my second or third pass on a productive area, because you got to leave and come back. You can't just turn around and go back and forth on them. Once you stir it up a little bit, nobody's doing anything normal, and you need everybody to be doing stuff normal for this to work.
Yep.
So that'll be I'll come back and I'll say, oh man, look how the shade's getting out towards that grass edge, and that grass is kind of thick. Where normally I'd throw my frog, which is my other killer topwater bait for this scenario. But boy, that popper, when the shade intersects the edge of that grass or very close, very, very good. Very good.
Yeah, well, for me, the best success I've had was on spinner baits. Fishing a spinnerbait, you're wondering why you get bit. You get bit when you're going down the bank and you catch a fish on a spinnerbait, and all of a sudden you catch that fish and you drift in and you see that there's bluegill beds around. So that's a great bait. I read a lot about guys also throwing, crankbaits. They're fishing, a lot of crankbaits around the bed areas. So they'll run crankbaits through there. But the success I've had bluegill bed fishing, which honestly hasn't been a lot of success, has been on spinner baits. Various colors, various sizes. But that's what works. That's what works for me.
Well, if I had to have one bait, I mean, the top water's good, but it's by no means my best. My best when I'm on that is a swim jig. I think that figuring out that bluegill deal on the Potomac River is what dialed me into how I fish a swim jig, because there was a couple years on that river with the bluegill that the swim jig was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So for me, it's always been either a green pumpkin or black and blue. A lot of people like a bluegill colored swim jig, with a little bit of orange. I don't even own one. I literally do not own a bluegill colored swim jig. I own green pumpkin, I own black and blue, and I own white. That's all I own in swim jigs. And
spike it. And spike it.
Right. And all kinds of trailers that I use for other things. And I think that's the important part. So you watch those little bluegills swimming in the grass, and you'll see how much blue is on them. They're pretty. And you'll see how their tails are lighter colored. And for me, a black and blue swim jig with a green pumpkin trailer, or vice versa, or a green pumpkin trailer on a green pumpkin swim jig with some spike it, chartreuse, is like lights out. You don't need 900 options. But I am going to say this, Mike, and I know you've experienced this with me on more than one occasion. We oftentimes fish a boot foot swim bait on our swim jigs, the crawl style or the twin tail style, the two working, consistently outperforms the swim bait style consistently on that circumstance.
Yeah, most definitely.
I don't know.
I think that's why the kamikaze is so good. They have them two little legs out there, man, really, really going. It's like
that really kicks nice, doesn't it?
Oh, it has a nice kick to it. It's a really good bait.
I'll put my crawl on that way too.
We sell a ton of menace grubs for swim jig guys. They really like that menace grub for a swim jig. I've tried it many, many times. I really haven't really gave it, the college, the college go at it, but I've tried it many times. It looks good coming through the water. One of my favorite colors, and GDP turned me onto it. I probably shouldn't tell anybody, but I'm going to anyway. Is a green pumpkin candy swim jig with a green pumpkin candy trailer. That is money, absolute money. Caught tons of fish on that thing. The weather was for bluegill or not, I don't know. He says it was. That was the bluegill thing. I was just chucking and whining. You know me. I wasn't even paying attention. I was just chucking and whining. But we caught a ton of fish on that thing over the years in different scenarios, and that was his bluegill killer.
Another thing I discovered about, and we kind of started off talking about it, is flipping that beaver style bait. Mm-hmm. And again, the black and blue, the green pumpkin. But I'll tell you something I always carry in my boat. I at least have one bag of them with me, and the bag probably looks like this because it's in there so long. You know what I mean?
That's embarrassing.
Not for me, it's not.
I went in there the other day looking for a sweet beaver.
The color,
I couldn't even read the bags. They were so bad.
The color is called it's a reaction color, and it's called Green Pumpkin Christmas or Christmas. And the red and the green and the gold flakes in the clear water when you maybe went through that bluegill bedding area and caught a few fish on the black and blue, and then you come back later in the day and, plan bait number 1, bait number 2, and then you're like, well, let me just flip through here a little bit. And that was something I learned years ago also, seeing the bluegills and noticing them colors and digging that bait out and catching fish. So I've employed that ever since, where, I don't usually start that way, but like if I'm having a really good area and I'm coming through like pass number 3 later in the day, that's going to happen.
I believe that there's a lot of different baits that would work for a lot of guys. We're just giving you our thing. There's a lot of different things,
almost everything,
and there's a lot of guys in here saying about different baits which to me would be great also. But I think the big takeaway on some of this stuff is finding those bluegill beds and finding enough of them that you can do this pattern. Don't rely on one bluegill bed to say, okay, I'm going to catch a whole limit of fish off here every day for 2 days or 3 days or whatever. Just, use it for what it's good for. And that's like even what George is saying a lot, make it coming back multiple times through the day. You can cycle through these beds multiple times, but you need to have a couple of different areas. That's the big point, is finding this stuff, finding these areas, marking them, and then rotating through them throughout the day will get you catching a lot of fish, whether you tournament fish or not. But if we pattern fish. That's what we do. We pattern fish. We go fishing every day and make and try to put a pattern together. And if it's the bluegill pattern that you're putting together, the bluegill spawn pattern that you're putting together, then you got to find spawning areas. You have to go looking for them. So if you do stumble across one, look where they're at on that particular, is it in a cove? How far back to cove is it? Is it, whatever. And then go try to duplicate that throughout the lake and try to find those beds. Or are they all on one side of the lake? Or, can you find them on the other side? And just go look for them and mark them down. And then you can just kind of rotate through them and have a great day of fishing, whether it's a tournament or not. We always use it as in tournament format talk because that's what we've always done. But I like to just go out to catch fish. I like to go out and catch lots of fish. So if I have multiple areas that I can rotate through and then rotate through with different baits, that's the important thing to know here is you're not going to do it off of one bed. You're going to catch a couple fish off of it and it's going to be cool. But if you want to have a hammer day at it, you got to have multiple areas to do this, and knowing your bodies of water, knowing your lakes, remembering things, putting marks on your, putting a waypoint down there. And then not only doing that, but even like George, he sits down and he types in the name of that waypoint. Like he'll type a name on there. I think we were out marking this ditch, and we marked it really good. And he was like top of the ditch, bottom of the, ditch, putting this ditch mark in there. So we knew what the mark was. It wasn't just a waypoint. It was so you can do that. You can put bluegill bed.
You can use an icon
or an icon. Maybe they have a bluegill icon.
Well,
I don't know.
You can just pick an icon that means something to you.
Or you can do that, but
yeah.
Or you can spell it out. Whatever. But I'm telling you that these guys that fish these lakes and they travel all over the country, they go back to those spots, and those bluegill are going to be there if they're spawning, because they spawn in the same areas all the time.
That they do. They're that's why there's so many of them, because they're just dumber than a box of hammer handles.
I used to fish a lot of ponds back in the day. A lot of ponds. We used to pond hop a lot of different ponds, and I love snatching bluegills right off the with a little jig, like catching them suckers, But I know, you always notice that it's at the same area. There's certain spots on the pond that they don't like to spawn, but there's other areas where they are, and they're there every single year. So, that's how I know that.
And it's interesting you say that. George had asked Nick, where did you find the spawn? Well, I got to say Candlewood, Connecticut. There's just one spot where, again, the bass would spawn. Then when they were done, guess what? Here comes the whole herd and the cavalry of sunnies. Well, I couldn't duplicate it anywhere else because I just didn't know the lake at that point. But what I did know is if I would go catch a limit I could always come there and at least catch one
Good one.
good fish.
Yeah.
And just remember that too. You might not.
Yeah.
Hey, put it in your little,
Yeah.
you know, what do you call it? Milk run, and catch a nice fish if you can out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you know, Nick, a lot of times when people talk about and we hear the word post spawn, you know, a lot of people bristle up like you just said, cold front. You know, because sometimes post spawn is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
You know, there's some circumstances where post spawn sucks. There's other circumstances where post spawn thrives. Well, one of the good things that you have to look forward to in post spawn is the bluegill spawn. Because when the bass are done, the bluegills start. And once the bluegills start, they spawn for weeks.
Long time.
That's why these colonies, these beds, when you see these colonies, they get so big because one group of bluegills spawned, then the next group comes in, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. That area that Mike and I found last spring, well, it was probably June last year on the upper Chesapeake, was in a spot that if you had to paint a picture of like if you were looking for bluegill beds, which we were not,
Yeah.
you would probably go look there.
Mhm.
Protected from the wind,
Mhm.
a little bit warmer water, vegetation.
Oh, yeah.
You could pebbly bottom, the bass spawn there, right, Mike?
Oh, yeah.
And,
No doubt.
you know, we're just happened to be looking at the 360 because we were looking for offshore grass. And we said, damn, there was how many beds there? Hundreds.
Couldn't miss it. Couldn't miss it.
You could see it from space.
But it's amazing. It's amazing how that thing picks those things up. It's almost freaky how that stuff shows up on those things. You know, it's the
I could tell you the next time I'm down there, I'll be back there because they will be spawning there.
Oh, I guarantee you.
Those bluegill are spawning there.
Oh, yeah.
And I will be there.
Yeah.
I might only catch one fish there. But you know, that area, it's interesting over the years. There was 2 or 3 years before that, we were down one day just plinking around. A couple of the guys that work here at the shop, pro staff guys. And we had, I mean, if you combined the three of us, our best 5 fish was absolutely epic. The biggest fish of the day came from that area. Now, we had no idea there was, and it probably wasn't, but we had no idea there was bluegill spawning.
Yeah.
We weren't even dialed into that whole thing.
Yeah.
This is also something that's easy to overlook.
Hey, Eric, the pond fishing thing that I did taught me more about catching bass than I ever learned out on regular water. Pond fishing. I learned more about the way bass act and how bluegills act and how, you know, the whole process of that, the largemouth spawn, the bluegill spawn. It just was like you did it so much that it was just what you did. You know, you knew at certain time you actually casting for spawning largemouth, and then you did that for a while, and then after that you went and fished those bluegill beds. You know, I did a lot of it. You know, I'd catch some bluegills off the beds, but then I'd start flipping stuff around there and catch some largemouth. But pond fishing will teach you a lot. It really teaches you a lot about what fish are doing and how they react, especially spawning largemouth. You know, I remember being really good at being able to catch them off the beds in a pond, and a lot of guys would just piss them off and they wouldn't never eat them. But I really knew about learned about putting the bait in a certain spot, getting it in that, you know, and just catching them off the beds. I mean, that's what we did. You know, probably not the greatest thing to do in a pond, but because there's 8 billion bluegills in there, but we catch them and throw them right back, and they zip right back on there. But I learned a lot about you know, a lot about that type of fishing and a lot about bluegill spawning and a lot about bass spawning and how they act and how they react to different things and how they react to a splash of a lure in the water and how they acted to a lure coming in, you know, splitting the water and being pitched into it, you know, not casted into it. So yeah, we learned a lot about that. So
a lot of the areas where bluegill live, it could be on the biggest reservoir in the country. But as far as the bluegill is concerned, they live in an area the size of a pond.
oh yeah,
They don't leave that area
yeah,
ever. They're all 4 seasons are in that area. They don't go very far for any of them. They go, you know, out to the deep edges in the winter and then back up to spawn. And then they stay up there all summer and then back out to the deep edges in the winter. So, you know, fishing in a pond when you're in an area where bluegill spawn, that's kind of like their pond. You might have ran 30 miles in your boat to get there, but that's their pond. That's where they live.
Yep.
So it's not necessarily that you're on a big water. It's still small water training.
Yeah.
Because that's their whole world.
It's all relative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a question, you know, your viewers out there, they're going, okay, is this primarily just a largemouth thing, or does smallmouth do they play into this at all, or primarily just largemouth?
I don't know. I mean, you know,
I don't know the answer to that one.
yeah, I don't know if you can catch them off there. I mean, I can't really say that I ever, you know, we have a big population of bluegills on this one part of the river that we fish, and why, you know, never really caught.
I've never,
but at the same time, there's a big population of largemouth in that area.
I've never associated smallmouth to a bluegill spawn anywhere I go. You know, I spent a lot of time on the northern lakes, Champlain particularly, and I've never really. Maybe that happened, but
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that one.
Smallies, you know, they do their thing. You know, on a lake or a river or something, they do their thing, and then they go out and start snatching up on you know, some shad or, you know, minnows or, you know, getting the current or whatever on the river. Never really found them around bluegill beds. That'd be a good conversation to have with some of these pros. You know, do you ever do that in some of those areas? But I don't.
I'm kind of thinking it's probably not a big deal.
I'm sure if there was a bluegill screwing around somebody's smallmouth bed, they'd eat them. I guarantee you that much. So, you know, I got to thinking about some different baits, you know, and I wonder if our listeners have ever tried them, like the new Mega Bass bluegill bait. What's that thing called? Shadow gill?
Sleeper gill?
Yeah. Sleeper gill. Beautiful little perfect size, you know, perfect size. Maybe that would be something to throw around there. I was talking with another fella who really likes to throw swim baits, the big hard-bodied swim baits this time of year around spawning bluegills.
So one thing I'd like to add about the anatomically correct bluegill baits, like the sleeper gill and the gilly,
yeah,
and the big custom swim baits, you know, with the one hook out of the back.
Yeah,
all of those baits were primarily designed and applied to spawning largemouth.
Yeah.
Putting them on a largemouth bed.
Yeah.
Like, what's the number one predator of the largemouth bed?
Yeah, bluegills.
So putting a bluegill on that bed, the gilly, the sleeper gill, and back in the day, the really big gill-shaped soft plastic swim baits.
Yeah.
For big fish.
Yeah.
Was a thing. Is a thing.
Yeah.
So it's to me, those baits are more derived of spawning largemouth than that. Now, one of the things that I found in my world that I wanted to share is just how simple the bait choices are. You know, well, so many things that we do.
Yeah.
We do great with large assortments of baits. You know, we deal with different situations with you know, in my I made just I just was like, let me jot down my stuff that I go to. Well, we talked about swim jig.
Mhm.
I that's got to be number one. We talked about the flipping bait, the beaver. That's got to be number 1A. We talked about the top water.
Yeah.
And the top water bite can be sporadic. Like if you have several bluegill bed areas marked and with big fish around them, you can run that first thing in the morning in the low light scenario and have one hell of a morning.
Mark Menendez loves the top water bite for that.
You know what I mean?
I know.
And then, as we discussed earlier, you can come back when that shade line's just getting right.
Yep.
And there's vegetation there. And trust me on that popper, you can have one hell of a midday or a late day. So the top water, you know, in my power rankings, I'm going to put them at like 3 or 2A. I don't really have a 4.
Yeah.
The remaining one for me, and keep in mind my top water is 3. Popper, Walker, and the frog. Frickin' frog around spawning bluegill. You know, Mike and I use a white belly frog with white legs with a little bit of orange in it. And we've had some frickin' and a walking frog. And we've had some moments with that.
Oh yeah. Special days.
Not a ton of fish, but good ones. Chatterbait, jackhammer.
When don't you throw a
I know.
chatterbait
I
and
know.
jackhammer?
I know.
I mean,
You can't
why,
hate.
why don't you get
you can't
original,
hate-
man?
Well,
Come on, man.
I mean, I don't know about the original part, but I mean,
Of course you're gonna throw a chatterbait. Why you gotta
I
bring it
know.
up?
well, I mean, what I guess my point is,
Everybody throws a chatterbait.
highlighting just how small the selection of key baits is for this. That's it for me, man. I'm good with a couple rods.
Yeah.
That's been my bread and butter. And I've had some pretty good success over the years on spawning bluegills, even if I didn't know they were spawning bluegills.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
But
Well,
once I figured it out,
We're constantly working on that pattern. You know, that's a constant working process. For me, it's a very much a constant working process.
Fun.
And you know, it's neat when you finally get in that situation. You're like, oh man, this is it. You finally get the scenario right, and you catch a fish, and it's like, oh, that's the bluegill spawn, and then you're trying to find more. And you know, it's over the years we're getting more and more of these areas. You know, we're getting multiple bluegill areas, and you know, so it's becoming something. And the other thing, you know, is the shad spawn. You know, we're slowly learning how to fish that,
or the minnow spawn.
or that minnow spawn, which we were introduced to this year.
We had two. Mike and I had two
Craziest damn
two
thing
of
you
the
ever saw in your life.
I mean, you'd have thought aliens were involved in the first one.
It was freaking crazy.
I mean, there was balls of these brown-back minnows
River shiners or whatever the hell they are.
that, how many were in a ball?
Millions of them.
I mean, not millions, but like,
Millions.
I mean, a
How do you know there
basketball.
wasn't millions in there?
That millions a lot.
That's not really. When they're balled up like that.
Well, they were balled up too, weren't they? And the thing is, when you first looked at them, and then you started looking up the river, you're like, holy hell, here comes like
Another ball
5 more balls.
floating in the current,
Just
making love in the current, man.
Yeah. Well, and then we ran into it in Alabama on the viney bank grass, and they were just all kinds of. And they'll tell you what, you put a frog near that.
Yeah. What was cool about
Over.
that was when you put a frog near that, the bass would shoot in from like the wake would come right in. Kaploosh. It was so cool.
They were up there in that bank and no water at all. When them little minnows would start spawning on them vines, they were just sucking them down like tater chips.
And the whole time you're sitting there, you're looking down the bank, and all you see is these bass shoot in. Kaploosh. Back out.
You see these swirl, and we're just like planning our
over there.
We're planning our crime speed down that. We're planning our crime spree down the bank. And the cool thing is, with that viney grass, The swim jig played, but boy, the frog was the bomb because that viney grass was unforgiving. It was vine.
Yeah, it was terrible.
You needed to get involved with it.
Yeah.
The casting accuracy needed to be pinpoint. It's kind of like that pop R pattern on that shade line on the matted grass or the thick clumps. You better be good at casting because as soon as you throw that pop R into that clump and start ripping on that clump, and you're screwed everything up. You want to lay that sucker in there like a sniper and just you twitch it more than 5 times and it's pretty much not going to happen.
Well, I hope that helps you guys out with you know, the bluegill spawn and going out and looking for it and going out and trying it. And I hope everybody's reading the comments that the guys are putting over here. They got some great comments on what they do. And it just is a great conversation to have. And I hope some of these points that we made for you guys tonight will help you dial in on that bluegill bite, take advantage of it. Listen, it's June right now. It's only the 13th. So we got this whole month and all of July for some excellent bluegill bed fishing. So
check this out. Last week on the Potomac was the Nation Championship.
Yeah.
Which was won by Brian LeClaire.
Yeah.
Of Denton, Maryland, fishing for the Delaware team. But Brian's a shout out to Brian. Brian, congratulations. Brian's been a customer of SFT for
Maryland boy.
Lives in Denton, Maryland, fishes for the Delaware team.
Right.
This will be his 4th national championship he's going to. And if he prevails, it'll be his 2nd classic. But here is what is interesting, other than the fact that Brian LeClaire is a straight-up hammer, and we're proud of him. Here's what's interesting. Day 1. His pattern was a bay full of milfoil. In front of this bay was a sandbar that ran across the mouth of the bay. The attraction to this bay was it was full of 3-pound bass and plus, which he knew he had to have, and he knew he had to do something different. What was going on that sandbar?
Bluegill spawn.
You got that right, Bubba. He found a bluegill spawn, and when the tide would come in and put about 2 foot of water on that bar, he could go through there and just decimate them. And day 1, he caught his fish on a 6-inch glide bait.
There you go. We just said it. What, how about that?
And then they got a little punchy. And day 2, he caught them on a green pumpkin dirty jig swim jig. With a twin tail trailer.
Oh yeah.
But he was on a bluegill spawn on the Potomac River. Sounds familiar to me.
There you go.
In a bay with a sandbar in front of it. Sounds familiar to me. Sand being the key element here.
Yeah.
Protected.
Yeah.
Grass.
Yeah.
Spawn. Bass spawns over. Bluegill spawn. I need to find something different. And I can attest from my experiences, when you find that on the Potomac River, you do make day 4. So that is a direct tie-in to what we're talking about, plus a great opportunity to shout out Brian LeClaire. And
awesome. Way to go, Brian.
Brian, can't wait to talk to you about the tournament. But thanks for proving our theory on our show.
Hey, George, so how does he get to the Classic from here?
Well, he goes to the Nationals.
Yeah.
And he represents his division. So he's not competing against everybody there. He's competing against everybody in his division, which is a big division. And then I think it's 3 people will go to the Classic. And if I know Brian LeClaire, he'll be one of them.
Yeah.
This is his 4th national championship.
Where's the Nationals at this year?
I don't know. And this will be his second classic. His first classic was in New Orleans in 2011. So that was a tough one there. But the other thing we got going on tournament-wise, fellas, is starting on Saturday as we have the MLF Invitational circuit on the Potomac. Potomac. We do like the Potomac.
Mm-hmm. What I like about that down there, there's so much water. It's not like the Chesapeake Bay where there's these small areas. There's a lot of water down there that those fish can get in, and people can come up with a whole bunch of different patterns and stuff down there. That's what I always liked about the Potomac.
It's big.
It's big.
So we got the MLF Invitational down there, and we got 4 people we're going to have our eyeballs on. So we got our buddy
JT
Joe Thompson, who is basically
he's a hammer down there.
Yeah, he's a Potomac stud, and he's basically going down there to take everybody's lunch money. He's jackpotting this trail, this event, which means he's not fishing a trail. He's fishing this one event, which makes him very dangerous. So we're going to have a close eyeball on JT. He is a hammer on the Potomac River. We are going to have a close eyeball on another friend of Tackle Shop Live, Brian Schmidt, who is also jackpotting this event. And Brian has won a few tournaments on the Potomac.
He's a hammer down there.
In grass.
Yep.
Maybe like 7 of them, but, only like 4 Toyotas and
He is.
Oh, wait a minute. I misspoke. He's the all-time winningest angler in the Toyota series.
Yep.
Oops. You might want to make sure your bluegill spawn's dialed in for this one. And then, of course, we have another good friend of ours, Gray Buck.
Yep.
Who is a Potomac stud, and we will be having him on our watch list. And then we have our 4th, who has won here before on this circuit, and he's our new friend from Italy, Jacopo Galelli.
Ah, yes.
And we are going to be watching Jacopo closely.
Yep.
And hopefully, like the last time he won, we will get to congratulate him at ICAST. So to our friends, we wish you the best. To all the other tour anglers down there, we wish you the very best. If you were watching our show tonight, you might want to go out and look for some bluegill. Just saying.
Don't forget, 10 days, Brian. 10 days is the open of the Conowinga Bass Anglers Tournament Trail. Conowinga Bass Opens. I don't know why I can't get that. I sponsor it. I can't even get it. George and I sponsor this circuit, and
I don't even know what it's called. I just call it Brian's Trail.
It's a really great trail. It's great for guys just getting into tournament fishing. It's great for the competition. It's great for the camaraderie.
Plus, it's a cool fishery.
It's a cool fishery down there.
You know what you can do down there at this one?
Do anything.
You can get on a bluegill spawn.
Sure can.
And that place is full of them.
Yeah, but no, there ain't no bluegills down the river anymore. They're all gone. Flatheads ate them all. Damn things.
Beg to differ.
The only thing I don't think a flathead could possibly eat one of them is those warmouths that are down there.
No, they can eat a warmouth.
I think those. You ever get a bite at the Conowinga pool from a warmouth?
No.
If you let them bite it once, it's okay. If you let them bite it twice, you're snagged. They pull you in a damn hole. How about it, Brian? Son of a bitches.
They're a sunfish with the biggest. They're the sunfish with the biggest bass type mouth.
Yeah, I mean Did
you guys know that sunfish are a member of the bass family?
Yeah, they grab your worm.
Wrong. Bass are a member of the sunfish family. See what I did there, Mike?
Yeah,
I can reeled them right in.
That kind of stuff just gets him really just like tickles him to death.
Number 5.
Yeah. So George and I sponsored a circuit, and what we do is we pay up to $1,000 bonus money for the championship at the end of the year. And you have to qualify by fishing 5 of the 7 events.
Or excuse me.
What?
Are we eligible for that 1,000?
Of course.
Ah.
Of course.
A knit.
Of course. I can win that money, and I will take that money. even though I'm sponsoring that money.
So are you saying you're going to be there?
Well,
We start off every year with good intentions.
That's the problem. We start out with great intentions to fish it, and we do fish a couple, and I guarantee we'll be there for a couple. Hopefully I get 5 in so I can fish the championship, but if I win the money, I'm not going to keep the money.
The problem was last year we
raffle
were on
off.
a killer bite on the flats.
Yeah, George ruined it for me.
I
I wanted to fit tournament fish, and he ruined it for me.
I would pick Mike up at his house every morning to go to.
I'd feel sorry for him because he would really pout, and I knew it was going to be a shitty day in the water if we went to the Conowingo. And on the way home, he would say, "See, we caught 6 fish all day long.
No.
And we could have been
we
hammered."
caught 60 fish, and they were all 13 inches long.
No, we always weigh good ones down there, So he's and that's what I have to listen to. But anyway,
Well,
I'm trying to get my point across here, bro.
I love it.
Can you give me a second?
Yeah.
So we pony up this $1,000, and all you have to do is spend $100 in the shop, and that qualifies you and fished 5 of the 7 tournaments. That qualifies you to win up to $1,000 bonus money on top of the regular tournament winnings that Brian puts up for that. And it's just a great tournament. It gets you a championship, and you can go down there and win a championship and fish towards something on a local level with a bunch of cool dudes, have a great time, do it with your dad, do it with your uncle, do it with your daughter, do it with your sister. I don't care. Do it with somebody. It's a lot of fun. It's a cool place to do it. It starts in 10 days. If you want more information on that, you can go to a website, Facebook page, Conowingo Open Series, Facebook page. Conowingo Bass Opens Facebook page, and check it out. Or you can come here to the shop. We have applications here in the shop that you can pick up. Right, Brian? And okay. Nick, you got anything?
No, I'm good. All I wanted to know is, are you guys going fishing this weekend?
Yeah.
Anywhere special?
Not me. I'm not going fishing. So I had this great weekend all planned to go fishing. And
I am going fishing.
George is going fishing. I had this great weekend to go fishing, and my wife was going to New York City with my daughters and one of her best friends who really knows New York City. So they try to go once every couple of years, and they plan to go see a Broadway show and go see the city for 2 days. Well, her best friend's friend died. One of her best friends died, and the funeral's on Saturday, so obviously she can't go. So my wife doesn't want to go to New York City by herself, so she's been beating on me miserably. So I am going to New York City for Saturday and Sunday, and I'm not going to be able to fish, but I'm going to be with my wife and kids in New York City, so it'll be fun. And I guess I've got to go see a Broadway show. I don't even know what I'm seeing.
Well, enjoy it.
Oh, I am
That's all
going.
you can do.
Oh, I'm going to. I already checked into a bunch of restaurants and going to eat. If anything, I'm going to eat good. That's one thing.
Yeah, you got to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, everybody. I appreciate you stopping by, and we appreciate you guys every week being real loyal to us. We'll see you next time on here at the shop Thursday night, 7:00 on another great edition of Tackle Shop Live.
Sunny day, right there you took my breath away. A young and pretty, was it just a dream? Buttercup, you came over and you fell into my arms. Well, I know what I feel. Please tell me